In this video, we're going to look at two different tools, the 835 balance checker and the ISA file splitter in our EDI Utility Toolbox. Both utilities are pretty quick to demo. The 835 balance checker is strictly a compliance tool. It doesn't do anything with editing or copying or making new values or anything like that. It looks at an 835 electronic remittance file and determines if it balances per the ANSI specifications balancing requirements, such as the service lines add up to the claim totals, the CAS segments balance to the claim totals, the sum of the claim amounts paid equal the amount of the actual remittance plus or minus any PLB adjustments, etc. Those balancing requirements are laid out in the technical guide for the 835, and here's just a small snippet of that section. So this is the section we use to write the logic for the balance checker. Let's take a quick look at it. Okay, let's look at the 835 balance checker. We'll choose this button right here in the lower right, and it wants to know what it's looking at first. So it's a file open dialog box. And we're going to grab this first one right here. And it's a pretty quick message. It went through the file, and even if it's an extremely large file, it is very quick, and it determined that this one is fine. So there's nothing more to report on this. Everything lines up. Let's take a look at a different file. One I just happen to know isn't going to quite be so elegant. And here it found one that is not balanced. This balance checker has determined there are 18 claims that are not balancing. And here are the claims, and it's going to give you the CLP, the segment that it's referencing. It's always going to reference the claim segment. And this, in parentheses, that 1969, that's actually a line number. So hold that thought, because there's other tools in the toolbox that help you look at that in a little more detail. But it also tells you the patient control number and the claim control number, the payer claim control number. And if there were service lines out of balance, you would see them listed as well. In this case, we don't know why it's out of balance. You know, how do you know which number is right and which number is wrong? So therefore, we can't tell you how to fix it, but we can tell you where to go to fix it. And you can save this to a text file. So you can, use it, email it to somebody, if you will, to take a look. But where that 1969 can be very useful is we have another tool in here called the EDI file editor, which there's another video on our YouTube channel that shows you how to actually use that. But let's actually take a look at, I already have the file editor open, and I already have this particular file open. And I'm going to go and find line 1969. Now, there's no actual lines in an EDI file, but when you create when you bust the segments onto their own lines, like we do in our editor, and you see in the lower right, you have the option for a line number to be displayed. And you can also use this little button here that says Go To. So I'm going to go to line 1969, and I'm going to see not only line 1969, but everything in red here is going to be the claim, so the entire claim, and this is a fairly sizable claim. So good luck trying to figure out which parts of this file are out of balance. So that's the how you can use other parts of the toolbox to solve some of these equations, if you will. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the ISA file splitter. What is that? Well, first of all, and make a disclaimer, if you will, there's lots of debate out there, I don't know about lots, but there's debate out there in the EDI circles on the validity of multiple ISA segments being allowed in a single file. Basically, an ISA is an envelope that tells you, among other things, what kind of file it is. So when there's multiple ISA segments, we're basically combining combining files, different files, into a file. Us folks here at EMS, we think it's not allowed based on our interpretation, but even if it is allowed, we're of the opinion that it's stupid. You can quote me on that one. So at any rate, we have a tool to split them out, whether they're allowed, not allowed, or stupid or not stupid. If you want them separated, we have a tool that does that. And just for the record, here is the technical report for the ISA segments in general, where the segment repeats as 1. Some people interpret that as there's only 1. Some say you can have 2 because the first one plus 1 repeat. So, you can determine for yourself whether or not it's quote-unquote legal. We don't care, but we'll show you how it works anyways. All right, before I show the splitter in action, let me just show you what we're going to split. So we're looking here at a file. This actually came from the field. This is actually a 4010 version, so the file's a little old, but we happen to have a combined file. This was something that came from a state Medicaid program where we have an ISA segment envelope up here with a 997 functional acknowledgement. Nowadays you would see that as a 999. And not far below it, we have another ISA envelope for a 271. So they put a 271 and a functional acknowledgement into the same file. Again, we're not fans of that whole apparatus there, so we have this ISA file splitter. This button here, we select that. I'm going to point it at that particular file we were just looking at. And I'm going to click open, and the only thing it wants to know is where to put the new files. So typically speaking, in all of our tools, we encourage you to put your newly created files in a separate place. The originals will remain completely unchanged. So we're going to create a new set of files, 2 of them to be exact, in this location. And that's it. So if we go back to our Windows Explorer here, the original file still there and intact. And if we go into this folder here, we just created 2 files. You can, of course, rename them. We will put a numerical counter on the end to ensure that they're unique IDs. But we have our 997 up here, and we have taken out the carriage returns for the to make it a pure spec. And here's our 271 file. So they have been separated. Other than the file naming, there's nothing more you need to do on those particular files. And that is the 835 balance checker and the ISA file splitter. Any questions or comments, please holler, email, phone number below.